Hey everyone, and welcome to Get Celebritized, another amazing episode where I help you earn more, live more, so you can give back more. And by doing that, I help introduce you to amazing people that are doing just that. My name's Aurea McGarry, and I can't wait to introduce you to my very special guest today, none other than a TEDx to be speaker in San Diego. So let's get right to it. He is phenomenal. He is going to give you hope. He has come from a very challenging background and has rose above the ashes. So grab yourself a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, whatever it is, you're going to want to meet this gentleman. Jesse Leon is an author of I'm Not Broken. I love that title. It was published by Penguin Random House, and he's a soon-to-be TEDx speaker in San Diego on June 11th, 2023. He's a real estate developer, and he creates public-private partnerships, grant-making programs, and impact investment funds to address affordable housing. He has my heart. Also, he has my heart because he's also helping with sex trafficking, addiction, mental health, homelessness, and the LGBTQ community as well. He's based in San Diego. He's an alumni of San Diego College, UC Berkeley, and my dad's alma mater, Harvard. Well, let me bring this guy up. He has managed over $1 billion with a B dollars in public sector investing and for affordable housing. He's a philanthropist. He's a survivor. Let me bring on Jesse right now. Here he is. Woo! I'm so excited to meet you, Jesse.
Oh, this is awesome. I'm excited to meet you too as well, Raya.
Oh my God, you have such a beautiful smile. You have my heart. You are the epitome of what this show Get Celebritized is all about. Because in the name, people might get the wrong impression. This is about celebrities. It's not. It's about putting the spotlight on great people doing things like you are doing, Jesse, going from where you came from, coming out above and beyond, and then turning around and making sure your life matters to help more people get out of these situations. So you are already a life well lived, and you're not done yet, that's for sure. So before we go back and we tell people where you're from and what happened to you over the years, because that's the really juicy part of your book as well, I'm Not Broken. Tell them where you are now. What are you doing now besides going onto the TEDx stage? Tell them what you do and kind of where you are, the success you've achieved. Then we're going to go backtrack and show people why you shouldn't even be here.
Oh, guys, thank you so much. Well, I live in San Diego. Most importantly, I think the biggest job is being a caregiver to my 81-year-old mother.
Aww.
And I am a consultant to foundations, social impact investors, and I bring about 30 years of experience working in the field of philanthropy, social impact investing, including program-related investments, corporate social responsibility, and end-to-end grant making. I've worked with budgets from 10 million to over 1 billion in both public and private sector funds. So I got my bachelor's, as you said, from UC Berkeley, my master's from Harvard University, a postgraduate fellowship from UPenn, the University of Pennsylvania.
Wow, you get around.
I'm a motivational speaker, soon to be TEDx speaker,
Yes.
certified executive diversity coach, and my book has won a number of awards, which is extremely exciting. I'm a Lambda Literary Award finalist, which is a huge deal, and
Wow.
Memoir Writer of the Year for San Diego, Memoir Writers Association.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start unpacking all this. Oh my gosh, Jesse. But the one thing that's this thread that you have is as the viewers are watching this show and listening on podcast, all this success was not handed to you. So I'm going to backtrack because I want really, really give people hope that here you are, such a great success and a motivational speaker and an award-winning author, all this stuff. But we're going to backtrack now and tell them why this shouldn't have ever happened and how you could have easily gone in a different direction. Because we're going to give people hope. And that's what this show is all about, giving them those nuts and bolts. And I want you to gloss over just, well, I was here, but now I'm here, and woo, everything's fine. It's no, we want to go down much, much deeper. So tell the viewers a little bit more about where you came from, Jesse, because it really, some of those defining moments we're going to talk about right now.
Well, I'm really glad you mentioned that I didn't do it alone. And it wasn't as if here's where I was, here's where I am now. A lot of my success I attribute to people who surrounded me with love. They believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. These amazing moments of magic where people would be placed in my life at exactly the right time when I felt lonely and just wanted to give up, which is why I wrote my memoir, I'm Not Broken, in English, and the Spanish version is called No Estoy Roto. And it's about moving from surviving to thriving and how I went from living a life based in trauma to being triumphant. But there were no bootstraps. I talk about it in my book. There was no pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It was
What do
people
you mean by that? What do you mean by that? There was no bootstraps.
meaning there's a saying, oh, he pulled himself up by his own bootstraps. This very individualistic approach of my success is mine and mine alone. And it's not. When you come from low income communities of color and immigrant communities like I did, half the time we say, well, we didn't have boots to pull ourselves up from the bootstraps. And oftentimes, in my case, when you're in college or community college or high school, you don't even know what questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I didn't know about study abroad. I didn't even know that was an option. It was a community college student, a counselor, who recommended that my first week at UC Berkeley, ask about education abroad program, for example. But going back, my success is attributed to people in recovery that have wrapped their arms around me, people who loved me and cared enough for me. I come from a very low income community here in San Diego along the US-Mexico border. Immigrant family. My mom went to the 5th grade in Mexico, my dad to the 3rd grade. And I was a welfare kid. I was a nerdy, loving, caring kid who used to get bullied for and was called a nerd all of my childhood. And that was going to be the original title of my book, was going to be Nerd. And I reclaimed it. I called it Never-Ending Resilience and Determination.
Well, they always say the nerds of the past are the bosses of the future. So whoever you're calling nerd in school, you're going to be working for them someday.
Exactly.
So I'm really interested to know, I want to talk a little bit more about, you went through some really like horrific things as well in your childhood. And you're also on the other side, you're talking about, you've been to all these colleges. I want you to really connect those dots because I want you to give these families and these kids hope. How on earth did you go from what you're talking about right now, the lowest of the low income immigrant parents, barely made it through elementary school, to now you Harvard, master, graduate school. Let's connect those dots. But tell us a little bit more about some of the experiences you had as a child.
So, as I mentioned, I was this little loving, caring, nerdy kid. I used to love studying and being on the floor in our tiny little 2-bedroom apartment, where I would have a National Geographic magazine on this side. I'd have a giant dictionary on this side, and I'd have an encyclopedia that had the topic of the cover of the National Geographic magazine. For example, I don't know, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, or the history of Turkey and the underground cities of Cappadocia. And I would get lost in these worlds, and reading used to transport me to these worlds that I never believed were going to be possible for me. We don't hear about, when you come from a very low income immigrant family, you don't hear, my family never traveled outside of Mexico and San Diego, LA area.
Wow.
And so I would dream. And so then at 11 years old, I got sexually abused. A few months into it, my perpetrators started pimping me out in the sex trade. I started getting sex trafficked at 11 and 11 years old until about 14.
Now, I know you had a very close-knit family. Warned the parents about what was happening. They obviously didn't know. Where was that disconnect there, that you're so young and this is happening to you?
It has nothing to do with the parents. And I'm a firm advocate in, we don't blame the parents. I don't blame my parents. I was threatened, and I was psychologically coerced, threatened, and bullied.
Somebody you knew?
Excuse me?
Somebody that you knew, or was it a stranger
No,
off the
no,
street?
no, no. I talk about it in detail in my memoir, I'm Not Broken, and
Okay.
it was a hot summer day, and the kids from the neighborhood sent me to the store to buy water balloons. And I went to Safeway. Safeway didn't have any. And so I went to another store, and the guy from that store told me that there was a gift shop down the street that sold, gifts and gags and um, party gifts. And he said they have some there at that store. And I walked in, and the owner of the store, um, long story short, sexually abused me and threatened me and physically assaulted me, beat me up pretty bad,
Oh my God.
and said that if I didn't go back, he'd kill me, he'd find out where I lived and kill my family. And so I went home. And when my mom saw what happened, I told her I fell off my bike.
Oh my gosh.
And that led to 3 years of sex abuse and sex trafficking out of a gift shop without my parents knowing.
Wow.
And I hated myself. I hated who and what I was. I blamed myself for the sex abuse. I blamed myself for being a loving, caring, nerdy kid. And I think the saddest part is I blame my mom. I
Oh.
blamed my mom for loving me for me. I blamed her for encouraging me to study, encouraging me to be a good, nerdy boy. That had I only been as masculine as my brother was, if I learned how to fix cars like my dad wanted me to, if I was good at playing sports and was boxing like my brother was at a young age, that maybe I could have fought off my perpetrator. And so it's been years of therapy, years of trauma work, years of loving my inner child to say it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my mother's fault. And so for 3 years, I went through this hell until the authorities got involved. And when the authorities got involved, you would have assumed, I think in most circumstances, it would have been my saving grace, and it wasn't. I fell through the cracks, and the system failed.
How did they get involved? So what do you mean? They just all of a sudden got involved? Did he get? Did he have another crime he got committed for, and they found you in there somewhere?
So without going into the details that I talk about in my memoir, I got in a fist fight at school. I went from being this loving, caring, nerdy kid with his hair parted to the side, big, thick welfare glasses, which were not trendy back then. Now they're trendy. All the
They're trendy now. You were ahead of your time, Jesse.
So I got in a big fight. I changed my exterior. I went from being this nerdy kid with glasses to dressing like a wannabe gangster at a young age, and became the class clown, became extremely rebellious, hated who and what I was. So I figured I would completely change. And so at 14, I got in a fist fight, and I beat up the kid pretty bad. And he had beaten up a friend of mine who was really small. So I came in to protect my friend. And I blacked out as I was beating him up, and the cops arrested me. And I was handcuffed in the principal's office with the police officer there. And he's questioning me, and I start crying. I said, I never meant to hurt anybody. And I told the police officer what happened. And so over the course of the next few hours, a social worker came in. The social worker, a white woman, started questioning me about the alleged incidents and basically accusing me of making this up so that I wouldn't get in trouble. And so, which was my first horrible lesson that a lot of us survivors, thrivers, as you said, go through, which is, why did I speak up?
Yeah.
Why did I reach out for help if no one's believing in me? So the state got involved.
It's a fear of a lot of victims of all sorts of crimes. Who's going to believe me? So yeah, wow.
And so they placed me in a state program for victims of crimes, and I was assigned a therapist. And in our first therapy session, my mother was requesting a translator. The therapist said no. My mother requested family therapy. She said no. And so for 4 years, while I'm in therapy, with the state assigned therapist, I spiraled down into cycles of substance abuse, homelessness, and becoming a sexually exploited child in the commercial sex trade of the streets from 14 to 18.
Wow.
And so how does a child go through that while going to therapy, weekly therapy sessions? It should have not happened to me, and it shouldn't happen to any child. And no child should be left to maneuver the mental health or public health system by themselves for them or their families.
Amen.
So what I do now, I'm a huge advocate for access to mental health.
Good for you.
Culturally competent mental health services, trauma-informed care in multiple languages, and making that accessible, because too often it's expensive. And those from extremely low-income communities, especially communities of color, breaking the stigmas to be able to say it's okay to seek help. But let's make sure that the services are in place for those of us when we are reaching out for help.
You know, there's just so much to be irate about when I'm hearing your story. I'm like, oh my gosh, wrong. That shouldn't have happened. My God, is that really happening? And I love people like you, Jesse, that turn around and say, because I went through this, I'm going to turn around and stop all of that, do the best I can to make a difference, because we would know that that's happening. None of us would know the pieces that are missing in all different sectors of life unless we go through them ourselves. And we all have our own crosses to bear. And if we turn around and say, okay, because I did that, I'm going to be an advocate for that because I know what it was like, been there, done that. If we all do that, then we're going to cover a lot of ground. So let me ask you this. Is one thing. You broke my heart when you're talking about all the reasons why you're blaming yourself. And those of us who look at abused children, that like, oh my gosh, just why didn't you scream? Why didn't you tell somebody? And you talk to us, you reveal that. It's like, wow, you were thinking that, and our heart just breaks, especially as a mom. My heart is breaking. You even think those things, blaming yourself, and if you were only more like your brother or stronger, and all those things going through your mind. Oh my gosh, I believe there's a hotter hell for people that abuse children, like when you went through those people. Just there's a hotter hell out there somewhere to do that to these innocent children. So let me ask you this: what kind of strides have you made? What kind of differences? Because even one little difference in this corrupt, I want to say, system that just totally failed you. What kind of prosperity? What kind of moving forward are you making, if any at all, there and anywhere else in the country?
Well, my work in philanthropy, in essence, is in social impact investing, and all the work I've done has been for the public good, and I see that. I've taken on the role of not protector. That sounds horrible, but I want to make sure that resources are available for others, whether it's affordable housing, substance abuse, access to mental health. Since my book came out, I started consulting for the federal government, and I'm also on human trafficking issues, and I'm also on the Human Trafficking Advisory Council here in San Diego. And so doing my best to suit up and show up at every meeting, speaking up when there's things that I think need to be addressed, and asking the right questions, and basically fighting for the resources for thrivers everywhere.
Are you finding strides? Are you making some moves? Are people listening to you?
There's a lot of foundations that are expressing interest in this space to address ending childhood sexual violence and ending childhood sexual assault. Sadly, for boys, there is a major stigma. A lot of people don't think this happens to boys. And so one of my biggest arguments is that we have a lot to learn from our sisters, the girls and women in this space that have really fought for creating change and having impact. And so we can learn a lot from our sisters on our journeys on how to be impactful.
Would you have one thing? It just breaks all of our hearts to even think that this is a issue, but we know it's a 1,000 years old. I mean, just the whole industry is just so deep, and just can't imagine people even doing this, but it does happen. We need to stop. It needs to not be on the planet anymore. Would you ever consider, or do you think this would help if you would run for some kind of position in your council, in your community, in government, maybe run for president? I don't know. I'm just saying we need some good people up there, people like you to make a difference in things like this. That's so you.
I've worked in the public sector quite a bit, both federal and state government. And I believe that some of the biggest impacts we could actually have is, when you work with elected officials, oftentimes donors to campaigns play a huge role. So I believe that there's a way to create public-private partnerships and bring in private sector resources to influence and fund advocacy campaigns, so that policies are created and implemented. And so being at the table when policies are being created is a huge lesson learned for me that I really learned at the Kennedy School at Harvard.
Oh, good, good. Oh, we're going to get to Harvard in a second. So do you feel, let me ask you this, if people are listening and they've been through maybe some of this, maybe all of it, maybe a little bit, maybe they're the parent, maybe they're the child. What is your biggest piece of advice because you've been through the mental health part of it and the getting therapy, good help, bad help, and you're coming out you're out the other side now, turning back and helping others. What piece of advice do you give to anybody that's listening that is either going through it or they're the parent of a child that's been through it, to help them come out that other side and make a difference and come to terms with this and get healing?
Well, I share my story to remind others that are struggling with issues of identity, addiction, suicidal thoughts, that may also be survivors, that we're not alone. My biggest message is you're not alone.
Amen.
A lot of us have gone through similar struggles, and in spite of our sometimes extremely painful realities, that we can accomplish anything. And for the parents, my mom reached out for help everywhere. The churches, her social worker, she was trying to understand how her little baby boy went from being a loving, nerdy kid to one day all of a sudden shaved his hair really short, started growing out my peach fuzz and dressing like a little wannabe gangster, and went from loving and caring to rebelling against her in the most horrific and cruel ways. And so she tried, and so sadly she couldn't find the right help. And so I tell the parents, don't give up. There's a lot more resources now than where there were when I was a child. Yeah. And so don't give up. Don't allow someone to just tell you no. Have them point you in the right direction.
And no, it's an option. Just keep asking, keep looking.
Keep asking. And so I found a new life when I entered recovery. At 18, I ended up weighing 135 pounds, strung out, sleeping under a bush in a park. And I didn't want my family to see me in the condition I was in. And so we all have that cousin, that brother, that uncle, that relative that we think they're just going to die out there. They're never going to get it. Well, that was me. I know what it's like to be that person that you feel that everyone kind of gives up on. But I was blessed that there were people that didn't give up on me and and believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. So don't give up. Hang in there. Reach out for help. There's a lot of resources now that weren't around.
We got the internet now. I mean, we didn't have that when I was a kid.
Exactly.
And we can use it for good things. It's not for, I love that we have the internet. We can, I escaped domestic violence from my first husband, and we didn't have Google. This is back in the early 90s. I didn't know there were safe houses around. I didn't know where to go. You just felt, alone. But now you just have the touch of your phone. You could find a sanctuary. You could find a nonprofit. You could find, help. So I really love the internet for that, for sure. All right. So now, Jesse, you're going from most people just give up on you. There is no hope for you. We don't know what to do. But you don't stop there. You go from there to not just one college, but like 3 colleges and Harvard. Talk to us about really detailed what got you from there to being now this college graduate doing what you do. There's some people in there that have helped, I'm sure. There's some pieces in there. So don't scrimp out on any of them. We want to hear, what did you do? You're lying there, let's just say, and you're destitute. You're the worst part of your life. How on earth did you start rising up? What was that first piece?
Chapter 15 of my book talks about my last night using and getting high. and the horrific experience that I went through. And it was around 11 o'clock at night. And I called this man who I asked to be my sponsor. And luckily, he picked up my call. And I was crying and I was beaten up and defeated. And he said, "You lost the war, Jesse, not just the battle, but the war. Quit trying to control your addiction and quit trying to control everything. Let me walk you through this journey. I believe in you." And so my clean date is March 12th, 1993. I just celebrated 30 years clean and sober.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. That deserves a huge
Thank
congratulations.
you. And so that for me was the first turning point, one of the first. And community college. I'm a huge community college advocate. And so I did community college for 4 years. I did one of those. I did cosmetology school because I may have to drop out to support the family, my mom, or what if I didn't make it? So I wanted to learn a trade, and I learned. I became
Why
a
did you go for it? Because you're very come from a poor family. Let's talk a little bit of Turkey. That okay? There's a lot of poor families out there saying, "Well, how did you even afford community college?"
There were different Pell Grants and different, federal and state programs for low-income individuals. There's a program called Education Opportunity Programs and Services, EOPS. And so anyone that's in community college, if you're low income and go to your EOPS office, ask for guidance. My EOPS counselor saved my life. She got me to ask the right questions. And it was her that encouraged me to apply to UC Berkeley. I thought I was just going to go to San Diego State here in San Diego, which there's nothing wrong with San Diego State. It's a great school. But she encouraged me to leave. And then she said, when you go to Berkeley, ask about education abroad. And so I lived in Madrid for a year, and I traveled to all those places that I would read in National Geographic magazines.
Oh my gosh. What was her name?
Huh?
What was her name?
Her name was Lisa.
We're going to give Lisa a shout out. We all need a Lisa in our lives. Look at that. That's so important for people to hear this. Sometimes it takes that one person. You gave a tip to make sure you go and find these grants because some of these kids may be looking at those colleges saying, well, I could never get in there or I can't afford that. And you just gave them another reason why they can. And there could be the next Lisa there that'll help them and give them the next idea and the next thing they need. You're making the perfect point, Jesse. We just talked about this in another one of my shows. It's people that need people are the luckiest people in the world. We all need people. And don't go through this alone. Reach out. Reach out. I love that you reached out to education. And I love that you love to read books and it took you away. So this is really, really good that you're talking all along the way with somebody that helped you. And now you are that somebody that's helping other kids and other families. This is great. This is so great.
I applied to about 10 schools. My GPA went up. I need to say this. For those of us that have gone through issues of addiction, homelessness, depression, we are extremely intelligent individuals. And I learned that immediately after I got clean and sober. My GPA went up to a 3.9. And I applied myself. And if I didn't understand something, I would show up to office hours and I would ask questions. And so I wasn't going to leave San Diego. And it was my community college EOPS counselor that encouraged me to apply to Berkeley, and I got in. And
so you don't know unless you try.
And it's not a race. I took 3 more years for my bachelor's degree for a total of 7 years.
Good for you.
And one of those I studied abroad, and I traveled to all these beautiful places that I would only see in National Geographic magazines. And I'm breaking the chains and I'm showing the next generation and the family that it's okay to travel. And I would send pictures home and my mom would see the world through my eyes. And came back and I lived in Cuba. I did HIV research in Havana. And then bam, people encouraged me to apply to graduate school.
See, more people encouraging you to go to the next step. Good for them.
More people, exactly.
Love this.
And they encouraged me to apply to graduate schools, and I did. And I got into most of the ones I applied to, and one of them was Harvard University.
I love that. I love that. That's so great. And so here you are doing that. And it was, like I said, it's people all on the way that were building you up. So you had a lot of negative and a lot of people pulling you down, but you had key people saying you can do it, go to the next level. Now, how does all this, so we've got to talk about the topic at hand. You're going to be a TEDx speaker. I know you're a motivational speaker and now you want to give back and you're working with nonprofits and really making a difference. And now you're going to be on the biggest, most coveted stage in the world for speakers, but just for people who want to share ideas. It is the most unique stage in the entire world. I was so excited when I was asked to be on it to share. And I'm like you, I'm just a thriver. I never thought I had any new idea to give the world, but people like you and I, we do have that special sauce that people, we need to share to get people out of these things. So can you tell us a little bit what you're going to talk about on the TEDx stage, and how did the TEDx stage come to your doorstep? Did you seek it out or did they find you? Take a deep breath. Here we go.
I was at an award ceremony. I was awarded Best Memoir Writer of San Diego, Memoir Writer of the Year. And someone in the audience read my book and she invited me to lunch. And I signed her book and we got to know each other. One day out of the blue, she says, I think you'd be an amazing TEDx speaker. And she sent me the link. And I thought about it over the years and I auditioned. I took a huge risk, but I think everything I've done in my life has taken
I was about to say that. Everything you did was a huge risk. I mean,
huge risk. And I spoke from the heart. I had ideas that I wanted to get implemented and that I'm lifting up. And I got selected for the callback.
So excited.
And then that audition, I had people in tears in the audience. People came to hug me afterwards.
I want to hug you. You're too far away. I need to give you an air hug. Yes, air hug. Oh, this is so great.
And I got selected, and they weren't going to do a diversity and inclusion topic, but they created one because of the issue that I'm bringing up. And once again, the talk is sex trafficking, the lost boys.
Wow. I just heard a celebrity, on my social media feed. I love all the inspirational talks. Just with any of the celebrities, the Tyler Perry's, the Oprahs, the Maya Angelou's, and just all of them, always clicking the likes. I want more of that in my feed. And it was just a couple of days ago, Jesse, I saw one of the actresses. I can't remember her name, but you'd know her if you saw her. And she said this quote that I just loved. And she goes, if it was, and I have it right here. I had to write it out. I stuck it on my computer right here. If it was meant for you, it will not miss you. And look, I just love that. All this success, all this that you've been doing wasn't going to miss you. You just had to go through a lot of stuff, but God knew you were strong enough to make it through. You were strong enough to be able to turn this around and look back and help and make a difference. And I think about just all the money you have, that you've been managing and giving back in the community and the nonprofits that you do is absolutely amazing that you're able to do this and help other people. So it's not experience lost. It's not wasted. It's so for the good. So tell us a little bit more about what you plan to do now, what difference you want to make by being on the TEDx stage.
My difference is, hold on, he's asking for attention. So,
oh my gosh, a hairless cat!
My little hairless kitty.
I love dogs. I love dogs. I love cats. And dogs. I was about to say my dogs are right here too. Oh my gosh, they're beautiful. I'm a huge animal fanatic.
My hope is that I'm able to encourage others that are too afraid to seek help, and to break stigmas, to break the stigma of not just reaching out to access for mental health, but to break the stigma of speaking up, of being a boy survivor, and educating others and creating opportunities to engage survivors, as you said, in policy creation. That's my dream. My other goal is that I am able to continue on my journey of building out my consulting practice to help other foundations and philanthropic institutions start addressing the issues that I talk about: mental health, substance abuse, trauma, sex trafficking and human trafficking, as well as housing, land use, climate change, etc. But that nothing can be solved in isolation or in silos. One thing always impacts another. So working across silos, across sectors to create positive community change, which in the end helps improve people's lives.
You are absolutely such an incredible human being, Jesse. I'm so glad to have met you. I'm so glad that the TEDx brought us together. Oh my gosh. And I'm going to I'll ask you two more questions. One, we want to help. There's more people like me that are hearing your story, Jesse, and are thinking, how can we help? How can we help make a difference? What can we do to serve you, Jesse? You are serving so many. Can we get involved? Can we help? Do you have, I'll put up the nonprofit, foundation page, whatever we can do. So if we're listening to you and watching you and we're saying, we want to help. Can we do anything to help you? What say you? And then I want to ask you one last question.
There's a number of organizations that exist out there, the National Human Trafficking Hotlines. There's for individuals, the Trevor Project for individuals that are experiencing issues with identity, that from that Two-Spirit LGBTQ plus community, questioning community. There are a bunch of resources out there. The best way to help for me was wow, he's really acting up.
He's so cute, love him.
Best way is listen, take a moment and pause when someone is reaching out for help. Because some of us that are survivors will throw something out there to feel out what your reaction is going to be. And if your reaction is one of shock or negativity or judgment, we won't go on with opening up. So when someone's reaching out in a conversation, take a moment to pause, to wait for the next thought, and ask inquisitive questions that come from a place of love, not from a place of judgment or accusation. And I believe that that's how we start breaking stigmas and open up spaces for conversations from the heart. So that's the biggest way that I think you can help. In terms of listeners and viewers, my social media is Jesse Leon Author on Twitter, Jesse_Leon_author on Instagram. And
I'm putting your website up, the JesseLeonAuthor.com. Can they get a hold of you there?
They can get a hold of me there. They can also, the book came out in August of last year. I'm Not Broken. The Spanish version, No Estoy Roto, came out in January. Get a copy. I read the audiobook, and the audiobook is amazing.
Oh, we can get that on Amazon, the audiobook?
Get it on Amazon, Audible, on your Apple iPhone. Show support.
We're going to do that. I know I'm going to get it, but then I'm going to send it to you to autograph for me, and then you can send it back because I like autograph books. What's your kitty's name? I'm a huge animal lover. I have 2 dogs, 2 cats, and 2 sugar gliders. And Jesse, I had a kangaroo, a llama, and a horse, and I don't live on a farm.
Wow. I'd like to say that his name is Harry, but it's not.
That would have been perfect. Oh, he's so beautiful. He's just rubbing on you. Animals give the best hugs and love.
His name is Panther. His name is Panther.
Panther?
Panther.
I love that. All right. Well, as we close up, Panther's just beautiful. Thank you for sharing him with us. I just love them. They give such unconditional love. If us as humans would give just as much unconditional loves as our pets do, our dogs and our cats and, birds, just all of them, we'd be a better place. But you are starting it. You are, out there helping others, doing what I just love when people do. I do it myself, where we take whatever obstacle that was could have killed us and turn it around and help others so it doesn't kill us and it doesn't kill them either. So that leads me to my closing question that I love to ask is, Jesse, what do you hope your legacy is? How do you want to be remembered for living this life?
That I inspired others to not give up on their dreams. I get asked all the time about my book writing process and how I became an author. And I tell folks that we all have a book in us. We all have a story to tell. whether it's sci-fi, whether it's a mystery, whether it's a romance, a rom-com, a horror story, a memoir. We all have a story to tell. And I hope that those of you that want to write a book, that you do put, pen to paper, you start typing and just start writing and tell your story. Second, no matter how far down the path of destruction we have gone, there is still hope. There is
Amen.
still hope. I went from being 135 pounds, sleeping under a bush in a park, to graduating not just from UC Berkeley, but from Harvard and from UPenn. And I still continue to work on a daily basis to improve the lives of others. So my legacy would be that on my gravestone, it says, Jesse fought for improving the lives of others and never gave up.
Oh my gosh, Jesse, we were already doing that in spades. You are living your legacy live in person and you're living it on purpose. Jesse, thank you so much for being here. I cannot wait to see your TEDx talk. I know your TEDx is actually sold out in San Diego. Good for you guys. But the beauty of TEDx is we all get to watch you on YouTube. The minute it drops, you better be texting me. I want my entire community to see that. And I will put that link in the description everywhere this TV show goes out and in the podcast when it drops as a podcast. So you'll be everywhere that I am as well.
Awesome. They're also having online viewing. I believe they're selling tickets for the digital viewing.
Oh, really?
It's amazing. Yes. So I'll do what I can to get the information.
Yeah, please
Post it. I'm excited. God continues to show up, and God is good all the time.
I love that. I love that. Well, on that note, give me that link. I would love to watch it live time. I know now my dogs are barking and things are happening. So, Jesse, thank you so much. You are absolutely an extraordinary human being. And I'm so excited. The whole world is going to see you on that famous red dot, and so many more people be helped because you're brave enough to step on that stage and continue to be a motivational speaker. Your future is so bright. And thank you for making others bright as well. Jesse, thank you so much for being on Get Celebritized.
Thank you. Air hug.
Air hugs, air hugs. Thank you, thank you. All right, we're going to close up. Don't go anywhere. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening to Get Celebritized, where you meet incredible people like Jesse Leon, and I hope you will get his book. I'm sure it's going to change lives. Now, I need to get that book too. So thank you for being here. Hope you guys all earn more, and live more, and give back more. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, everyone.